Karen took a retired sniper's scope. Her home got raided for more stolen goods. Have you ever wondered what happens when someone's entitlement pushes them too far, crossing a line that brings their world crashing down? It started with a glint in the morning sun, a shimmer that caught Karen's eye through her kitchen window. The scope, sleek and precise, sat on Colonel Jim Hargrove's workbench in his open garage across the street. Jim, a retired Marine sniper with 30 years of service, was a quiet man, his days now spent restoring vintage rifles for collectors. Karen, the neighborhood's self-appointed watchdog, had been feuding with him for months over his unsightly garage projects. She'd filed complaints with the HOA, left passive-aggressive notes about his truck parked an inch over her property line, and even called the city about his excessive lawn clippings. But this time, Karen's obsession with control took a darker turn. That scope, a rare Vietnam-era piece Jim had spent years tracking down, was her trophy, a way to teach him a lesson. Karen didn't just want the scope. She felt entitled to it. She'd convinced herself Jim was a menace, flaunting his military relics in a peaceful suburb. So one Sunday while Jim was at the Veterans Hall, she marched across the street, slipped into his garage, and took it. She didn't stop there. Karen's resentment fueled a spree. She swiped tools from Jim's workbench, a neighbor's antique garden gnome, and even a set of rare coins from Mrs. Delaney's mailbox, left there by mistake during a delivery. Karen's logic was simple: she deserved these things for enduring the chaos of her neighbors' lives. She stashed her haul in her garage, hidden behind stacks of old yoga mats and unused exercise equipment, congratulating herself on her cleverness. But Jim wasn't just any retiree. His sniper instincts, honed over decades, hadn't dulled. The missing scope was no accident. Noticed it within hours. He'd seen Karen lurking near his garage the day before, her nosy glances lingering too long. Jim didn't confront her. Instead, he did what he'd always done. He observed. He noted her late-night trips to her garage, the way she'd glance around nervously before shutting the door. He remembered her complaints about clutter and her odd fixation on his projects. Then he made a call, not to the police, but to an old friend in the sheriff's department, Deputy Alex Carter, who'd served with Jim's unit years ago. The truth unraveled faster than Karen could have imagined. Alex didn't buy her innocent act when he knocked on her door, asking about the scope. Karen's face flushed red, her voice climbing as she ranted about Jim's disrespectful garage habits. But Alex wasn't there for a debate. He'd already pulled security footage from Jim's doorbell camera, catching Karen's blurry figure slipping into the garage. More damning, a neighbor's camera showed her hauling Mrs. Delaney's coin box under her arm. Karen's protests, "I was just holding on to them for safekeeping," fell apart when Alex asked to check her garage. She refused, crossing her arms and demanding a warrant. That was her first mistake. The confrontation escalated at dusk, when Karen's entitlement boiled over into defiance. She stormed out to Jim's front yard, spray paint can in hand, defacing his fence with HOA violator in dripping red letters. She kicked over his planters, shattering ceramic pots and uprooting his late wife's roses. Jim watched from his porch, silent but unyielding, as neighbors gathered, phones out, recording Karen's meltdown. Among them was Sarah, a quiet single mom who'd moved in last month. Sarah had her own run-in with Karen, who'd berated her for letting her kids play too loudly in their own backyard. Now, Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady but sharp. "Karen, you stole my son's bike last week. I saw it in your garage when you left it open." The crowd gasped. Karen's spree was bigger than anyone thought. Sarah's revelation was the twist that turned whispers into a roar. Neighbors who'd tolerated Karen's complaints for years started speaking up. Mr. Patel mentioned his missing toolbox. The Wilsons recalled their lost patio chairs. Karen's face twisted, her usual bluster faltering as she realized she was surrounded not just by accusers, but by evidence. She tried to pivot, claiming Sarah was lying to smear her. But the crowd wasn't buying it. Jim, still calm, handed Alex a USB drive with the compiled footage from multiple neighbors' cameras. "Check her garage," he said simply. Karen's second mistake was thinking she could outsmart a sniper's precision. The raid came at dawn. A SWAT team, tipped off by Alex's warrant, rolled into Karen's driveway. She stood on her porch, screaming about her rights, as officers hauled out her stash. Jim's scope, Sarah's son's bike, Mrs. Delaney's coins, and a dozen other pilfered items from the neighborhood. The wooden sign in her yard, meant to advertise her perfect home, now bore a neighbor's handwritten note. Karen's crime spree, justice closes in. The search uncovered more fake HOA violation notices she'd forged to intimidate neighbors, and a notebook detailing her grudges against half the block. Each item was a nail in the coffin of her self-righteous facade. Karen's empire of entitlement crumbled as she was cuffed, her neighbors watching in stunned silence. Karen's downfall wasn't just the raid, it was the community she'd alienated. She'd spent years bullying neighbors, filing complaints, and demanding control, but her thefts exposed her as the true disruptor. The scope, worth thousands, was enough for felony charges, but the additional stolen goods piled on counts of larceny. At her hearing, Karen tried her old tactics, tearfully claiming she was protecting the neighborhood's value. The judge wasn't swayed. She was sentenced to 3 years, her home sold to cover restitution. Jim got his scope back, and Sarah's son rode his bike again. The neighborhood felt lighter, as if a storm had passed. In the end, Karen's story isn't just about a thief caught, it's about the cost of believing you're above others. Jim, Sarah, and the others didn't just reclaim their belongings. They reclaimed their peace. One person's arrogance can ripple, but so can a community's resolve. So, what do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved? Or was there another way to handle her? Share your thoughts, because justice, like truth, often depends on where you stand.